On the night of November 7, 1943, just after midnight, Buganville Island was cloaked in darkness, with the waters of at Cinema Bay reflecting only the faint glow of the stars above. Japanese destroyers sliced silently through the black waves, carrying nearly 500 soldiers of the 53rd Infantry toward what their commanders believed was the vulnerable rear of the American positions. The plan had been meticulously crafted: slip behind enemy lines while the Marines slept, establish a strong perimeter, and crush the U.S. beachhead in a devastating pincer maneuver. It was a textbook example of classical military doctrine: surprise, darkness, and superior numbers combining to create inevitable chaos. At his command post, Major James Wilson received the radio report confirming that enemy forces had landed behind their positions. According to conventional wisdom, the Marines should have panicked. They should have been trapped between two forces, forced to surrender or face annihilation. Yet, what awaited the Japanese was not confusion but a meticulously prepared killing field, a testament to the evolved defensive doctrine of the Marine Corps. At 0015 hours on November 8, the radio crackled again. The voice on the other end was calm yet urgent. Enemy barges had been sighted making landfall 3 miles behind the main marine perimeter near Cororoina Lagoon. Wilson set aside his coffee and leaned over the tactical map spread across his field table. Red pins marked the frontline positions of the 3rd and 9th Marine Regiments, while blue arrows indicated likely Japanese approach routes. Now, Wilson added a new symbol, representing the 500 enemy soldiers who had executed what their commanders considered a flawless flanking maneuver. While the Marines' attention remained focused on northern and eastern jungle approaches, Japanese destroyers had slipped through the darkness, delivering nearly half a battalion to the Marines' rear. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph McCaffrey burst into Wilson's tent, his uniform smeared with the ubiquitous red clay of Buganville. "Major," he said, "we've got confirmation from the 12th Marines. Artillery observers report at least 12 barges, maybe 15. They're unloading fast." Wilson nodded, already calculating response times and pre-planned fire missions. The Japanese had chosen a challenging landing site, a beach flanked by coral reefs, impassable to larger vessels but ideal for their shallow draft barges. They had assumed that the Marines would need hours to reorganize artillery, coordinate a response, and reposition forces. What they didn't realize was that Marine doctrine had evolved far beyond static defense. The 3rd Marine Division had spent months integrating fire support systems, developing rapid response procedures that could bring devastating artillery to bear from any direction within minutes. Every possible scenario had been wargamed in advance, including the very flanking maneuver the Japanese had attempted. Sergeant Herbert Thomas moved along the inner perimeter, inspecting his squad positions as the first artillery rounds began falling on the beach. The 12th Marines opened fire with their 75 mm pack howitzers, walking shells across the landing zone with deadly precision. Through his binoculars, Thomas watched as Japanese soldiers scattered from the barges, some diving into the surf, others sprinting into the jungle. The 90 mm coast defense guns from the 3rd Defense Battalion added their heavier rounds, cratering the beach and setting 2 barges ablaze. The Japanese had expected tactical surprise, but their own intelligence had failed. Marine listening posts had tracked the destroyer movements for over an hour, and coastal observers had identified the barges long before they reached the beach. By the time the first Japanese soldiers set foot on sand, artillery concentrations were already striking pre-designated targets. What should have been a coordinated assault was reduced to a desperate scramble under withering fire. Captain Isamu Akamatsu led the first wave of Japanese infantry inland, confident in their months of training for night operations and jungle warfare. They moved in small groups, expecting to outmaneuver American forces in the dense terrain. However, as they penetrated deeper, they encountered something unexpected. Marine positions seemed to anticipate their approach. Machine gun nests covered every likely route. Artillery observers maintained constant contact with gun batteries, and trip flares illuminated key sections of jungle at precisely the wrong moments for the attackers. Private First Class Robert Carter manned an M19 19.30 caliber machine gun from a dug-in position behind a fallen log, camouflaged by jungle vegetation. When the lead Japanese patrol entered his kill zone, Carter held fire until the entire group was within range, then unleashed controlled bursts that decimated the front rank and scattered survivors. Within the first hour, the Japanese assault began to unravel. Coordinated units were pinned down by relentless machine gun fire, shattered by artillery concentrations that seemed to anticipate every move. Radio communication between Japanese elements grew sporadic, disrupted by Marine jammers. By contrast, American coordination remained flawless, maintained through superior communication equipment and strict protocols. From his command post, Major Wilson monitored every move, receiving real-time updates from forward observers and artillery spotters. The Japanese attack unfolded exactly as Marine defensive doctrine predicted: confusion in darkness, units separated by terrain, mounting casualties among exposed leaders. The attempted surprise maneuver had been turned against its orchestrators, providing the Americans with a decisive advantage. Thomas led his squad forward in a calculated counterattack that would later earn him the Medal of Honor. Moving through jungle illuminated by flares and muzzle flashes, he coordinated with adjacent units to envelop remaining Japanese positions. Despite a shrapnel wound to his left arm, Thomas remained in an exposed position, directing fire until the immediate threat was neutralized. By 0400 hours, the Japanese rear attack had collapsed. The carefully planned flanking maneuver had become a one-sided slaughter, with the invading force trapped between the beach and the marine perimeter. Artillery continued to rain on escape routes while infantry methodically eliminated survivors. The night intended to break American morale instead demonstrated the lethal effectiveness of combined arms warfare. The Japanese soldiers who survived the initial barrage found themselves in a tactical nightmare. Captain Akamatsu's remaining men were scattered across nearly 2 miles of jungle, cut off from landing craft and facing marine positions that seemed to anticipate their every movement. Japanese assumptions that American defenses were predictable, that fire support required hours to coordinate, that darkness would provide cover, were shattered. Sergeant Thomas moved through the pre-dawn darkness with precision, positioning his squad along a ridge dominating approaches to the main perimeter. Their M1919 machine guns created overlapping fields of fire, while enemy infiltrators attempting to bypass via a streambed were forced into open areas where artillery observers could strike with deadly accuracy. The Japanese had anticipated isolated strongpoints, easy to overwhelm with concentrated assault. Instead, they faced a defensive organism, every position interconnected. When one marine position engaged the enemy, adjacent units automatically adjusted fire to prevent escape. Pre-planned artillery coordinates struck within minutes, and superior communications kept all units connected. Major Wilson directed the response with the efficiency of a commander who had anticipated every eventuality. Reports from forward observers enabled instant fire support, turning Japanese tactical doctrine obsolete. Small unit infiltration that had succeeded elsewhere was rendered useless by Marines trained to fight in integrated, coordinated teams. Private Carter's machine gun became pivotal when Captain Akamatsu launched a desperate charge, attempting to overwhelm what he thought was an isolated position. Nearly 40 Japanese soldiers advanced through the jungle, but Carter's gun was part of a network with interlocking fields of fire and mortar support positioned 800 yards behind. When Akamatsu's troops reached 50 yards, Carter unleashed sustained bursts, cutting down the lead elements and driving the survivors into a pre-registered target depression. Mortar rounds fell within seconds, annihilating the attackers and dismantling Akamatsu's remaining command structure. The battle demonstrated the revolutionary impact of radio communication, which connected every squad leader to company command, allowing rapid, precise coordination unmatched by Japanese reliance on signal flags and runners. Throughout the night, Japanese tactics, once effective against Chinese forces and early American units, became death traps. Their expected concealment led into pre-planned killing zones. Favorable terrain became lethal under interlocking fire. Darkness no longer concealed, it revealed Marines poised for precise engagement. Over 400 rounds from the 12th Marines' 75 mm howitzers, combined with 90 mm coast defense shells, shredded Japanese formations. By 0300 hours, enemy return fire was reduced to sporadic rifle shots from scattered survivors, depleted in ammunition and isolated from command. Thomas orchestrated limited counterattacks, collapsing remaining positions while minimizing his men's casualties, exemplifying the doctrine prioritizing firepower over maneuver. By dawn, the Japanese landing force of 500 had been reduced to fewer than 100 effective fighters. They were trapped between the destroyed landing site and the impenetrable marine perimeter. The rear attack, intended to collapse American resistance, had instead demonstrated the futility of traditional infantry tactics against integrated combined arms operations. The sun revealed a battlefield littered with bodies and twisted equipment. Captain Akamatsu's corpse lay 50 yards from Carter's machine gun, his sword still in hand, testament to the final futile charge. Burned landing barges marked the limits of Japanese ambition. Major Wilson surveyed the field, confirming a decisive victory. 17 Marines killed, 32 wounded, against 237 confirmed Japanese dead, with total casualties likely exceeding 400. Tactical lessons were clear. Traditional infantry assaults, honed in China and Southeast Asia, proved obsolete against units with modern communications, coordinated artillery, and integrated defensive networks. Sergeant Thomas oversaw evacuation and security, refusing treatment for his own wounds, embodying the shift from individual heroism to disciplined, coordinated leadership. Japanese survivors were isolated, their command structure decimated. Marine patrols methodically cleared jungle and coral caves using small team tactics with constant artillery support, minimizing exposure to enemy fire while maximizing lethality. The psychological impact on Japanese morale was severe. Survivors reported disbelief at the speed and accuracy of American fire support. The engagement continued through November 9th and 10th, with systematic elimination of remaining resistance. M1917 light tanks supported infantry sweeps, their 37 mm guns devastating hiding positions. Flamethrowers and explosive charges cleared coral caves, while Corsair fighter bombers provided precise close air support, dropping 500-pound bombs and rockets guided by smoke markers. Major Wilson's forward command post collected captured equipment and documents, revealing Japanese plans and intelligence assumptions. Enemy commanders had overestimated their ability to surprise and overwhelm the Marines, expecting slow artillery response and isolated strongpoints. Instead, every Marine rifle squad was supported by machine guns, every company in direct communication with artillery, every battalion with pre-registered fire missions. Private Carter's machine gun accounted for over 60 confirmed kills, exemplifying the impact of well-positioned automatic weapons. Interlocking fire zones and coordinated counter-battery missions became textbook examples of modern defensive operations. Intelligence analysis revealed the Japanese underestimation of night fighting capabilities, communication speed, and artillery precision, making their tactics ineffective. By noon on November 8th, organized resistance had ceased. Casualty assessments confirmed 377 Japanese dead, near total annihilation of the landing force, against minimal American losses. Medal of Honor recommendations for Thomas cited his leadership, coordination, and tactical brilliance. The strategic impact extended beyond Buganville. Japanese commanders throughout the Pacific were forced to reconsider assumptions about American fighting ability. Superior coordination, communication, and firepower had overcome numerical and tactical surprise, setting precedents for future operations. Marine doctrine emphasizing integrated defense, rapid fire support, and small unit leadership would save thousands of lives in subsequent engagements across the Pacific. The battlefield itself became a training ground, with positions and techniques analyzed for instructional purposes. Japanese planning documents captured revealed overconfidence and doctrinal obsolescence, reinforcing the importance of flexibility and integration in modern combat. As November 10th concluded, the last remnants of Japanese resistance had been eliminated. Lieutenant General Imamura's attempt to trap the American beachhead had failed utterly, costing an elite battalion. The night of November 7th to 8th had transformed into a demonstration of combined arms superiority. Graves registration teams honored the fallen, and Marines consolidated defenses, incorporating lessons learned for future operations. Tactical analysis, patrol sweeps, and documentation ensured that the principles of interlocking fires, coordinated artillery, and small unit leadership became standard practice. The Battle of Buganville became emblematic of a shift in warfare, where doctrine and coordination could decisively outweigh numbers and surprise. Sergeant Thomas's actions, Private Carter's lethal machine gun position, and Major Wilson's command efficiency exemplified the systematic application of modern military principles. By dawn, the battlefield stood as a testament to the superiority of integrated operations. Every enemy misstep anticipated, every fire mission coordinated, and every Marine positioned to exploit advantage. The Japanese attack, meticulously planned and boldly executed, ended as a case study in operational failure against a modern, well-prepared defense. Reports and after-action analyses informed strategy across the Pacific. Lessons in fire support, communications, night engagement, and integrated defense became codified into training manuals. The principles proven at Buganville would influence Okinawa, Iwo Jima, and other critical campaigns, saving countless lives and redefining American defensive doctrine. The annihilation of the 53rd Infantry served as a stark reminder of the consequences of underestimating the enemy and over-relying on outdated tactics. The psychological, tactical, and strategic lessons endured far beyond the immediate battle, shaping Marine Corps operations for the remainder of the Pacific War and beyond. By the morning of November 11th, a quiet settled over Buganville's scarred beaches. The Japanese rear attack had not only failed but had highlighted the obsolescence of conventional infantry assault against coordinated modern defenses. Graves registration, battlefield analysis, and tactical documentation proceeded alongside consolidation and training, ensuring that every lesson was captured. Sergeant Thomas's squad, Private Carter's team, and the larger 3rd Marine Division had demonstrated a new paradigm. Victory through integration, coordination, and firepower rather than sheer numbers or individual bravery alone. The engagement would echo through military history, a textbook example of combined arms warfare, and a decisive affirmation of American tactical innovation. The disparity in casualties, 377 Japanese dead to 17 Marines, reflected more than just weapon superiority. It illustrated the power of doctrine, training, and preparation. Japanese expectations of rapid success through surprise and panic were shattered by Marines who anticipated every move, coordinated every fire mission, and exploited every terrain feature. From the initial detection to the final sweeps of isolated survivors, every element functioned as a cohesive system. The Battle of Buganville exemplified the transformation of warfare, where integrated defense, real-time communication, and pre-planned artillery could utterly negate the advantages of numerical superiority and tactical cunning. The engagement also underscored the human dimension of modern warfare. Leadership, discipline, and morale proved decisive. Marines under fire, like Sergeant Thomas and Private Carter, exemplified how training and doctrine could multiply the effectiveness of individual units. Conversely, Japanese reliance on rigid tactics, delayed communication, and assumptions of enemy inferiority resulted in catastrophic failure. Each aspect of the battle, from flares illuminating enemy movement to pre-registered artillery coordinates, demonstrated that victory was as much a product of planning, coordination, and systematic execution as of courage or valor. In the final analysis, the Buganville engagement transformed Marine Corps doctrine and demonstrated the decisive impact of modern combined arms operations. The Japanese rear attack, designed to trap American forces, became a textbook example of operational miscalculation, doctrinal obsolescence, and tactical failure. Marines leveraged superior communication, firepower, and terrain mastery to convert potential disaster into a resounding triumph. The lessons would resonate far beyond the jungles of Buganville, shaping campaigns, doctrine, and training for years to come. Sergeant Thomas, Private Carter, Major Wilson, and the men of the 3rd Marine Division had not merely defended a beachhead, they had codified the future of American military operations, proving that preparation, coordination, and integrated firepower could decisively overcome any tactical threat.